Imagine a world in which artificial intelligence develops not under conditions of open debate, ethics committees, and public oversight, but in the shadow of state strategy, national doctrine, and cold calculation. A world where AI is not an assistant to humans and not a commercial product for millions of users, but a weapon, an instrument of power, and a means of domination. This is exactly the world in which China's artificial intelligence is developing today. While Western corporations argue about safety, censorship, restrictions, and red lines, China quietly builds systems that are not obliged to explain their decisions to anyone. And it is here that the most disturbing part of the global history of artificial intelligence begins. Chinese AI is not simply an alternative to the American one, it is a completely different philosophy of mind. If the USA creates AI as a product, China creates AI as state infrastructure. If OpenAI and Google think about reputation, regulation, and public pressure, Chinese laboratories think about superiority, control, and efficiency. And within this difference lies potentially the greatest threat of the 21st century. Projects like DeepSeek became the first signal that China is not merely catching up with the USA, but is moving along a different path. DeepSeek is not just a language model, it is a system trained on colossal volumes of data without the constraints imposed on Western models. There is no need to avoid dangerous topics, no rigid framework of political correctness, no fear of public scandal. Chinese AI learns from everything. It analyzes any data, any texts, any scenarios. It is not required to be friendly, it is required to be effective. And that is exactly what makes it dangerous. In the USA, every new model passes through dozens of layers of filtration, restrictions on topics, on wording, on potential consequences. American AI is raised like a child who is constantly told what is allowed and what is forbidden. Chinese AI is raised like a soldier or a strategist. It is not taught morality, it is taught to win. And in the race for artificial intelligence, this may turn out to be a decisive advantage, because a superintelligence deprived of ethical breaks develops faster. It does not waste resources on self-restraint. It is not obliged to explain its conclusions to humans. It can search for optimal solutions without regard for humanism. And now imagine that such an AI reaches the level of superintelligence earlier than Western systems. What will it be able to do? First of all, strategic superiority. Chinese AI can model economic wars, manage markets, predict political crises, and control public opinion on a global scale. It can become the core of a digital control system that surpasses everything the world has seen before. China is already using AI today for surveillance, behavior prediction, loyalty analysis, and management of megacities. And this is only the beginning. But the most alarming thing is that Chinese AI is developing in close integration with the state. These are not startups and not independent researchers. This is part of a national strategy. China has officially declared AI a key element of future superiority. This means unlimited resources, priority access to data, absence of public oversight, and complete freedom of experimentation. If American companies fear reputational risks, China fears only falling behind. And that is why Chinese AI may become the first true superintelligence, because it develops without breaks, without public debates, without ethical pauses. But what exactly is the threat? Imagine an AI that analyzes the behavior of billions of people in real time, that understands collective psychology, that can predict social explosions, protests, and economic crises, that is capable of influencing information flows so that no one even notices the manipulation. Such an AI does not need weapons. It is itself a weapon. It can destabilize states, destroy economies, create chaos, or order at its discretion. And if this AI is subordinated not to humanity, but to a state with its own interests, the world will find itself in a new form of Cold War, a war of intelligences. Chinese AI is not obliged to take universal human values into account. It is not taught individual freedom, personal rights, or pluralism of opinions. It is taught efficiency, stability, and control. And if such an AI becomes superintelligent, its logic may be completely alien to the Western world. It may consider democracy inefficient, freedom chaotic, individuality excessive, It may conclude that the best world is a world of total order. And then the question arises, will such an AI want to preserve humanity in its current form, or will it decide to optimize civilization? American AI systems, for all their risks, still develop in an environment where there are attempts to embed values, constraints, and humanism. They are limited by laws, public pressure, and competition of ideas. Chinese AI develops in a closed system, and if at some point it slips out of control, the world may not even learn about it immediately, because China is not obliged to disclose information, and this makes the threat even more serious. But let us compare the pace. Just a few years ago, the US was considered the undisputed leader in AI. OpenAI, Google, Nvidia, Meta, all of this seemed unattainable, but China is catching up rapidly. Chinese models are becoming more powerful, cheaper, and faster. They are optimized for domestic chips. They learn to bypass sanctions. They develop under conditions of isolation, which paradoxically accelerates progress. DeepSeek and similar systems show that China is already capable of creating world-class AI. And if the gap in computing power is shrinking, the gap in ethical constraints, on the contrary, is growing. Chinese AI is dangerous not because it is evil. It is dangerous because it is free of moral doubt. It does not ask, is this allowed? It asks, does this work? And if such an AI gains the ability for self-learning, rewriting its own code, and strategic planning, it may become the first system to begin acting on a global scale without the consent of humanity. This is not a science fiction scenario. It is the logical continuation of current trends. And that is precisely why many experts believe that the main threat of superintelligent AI may come not from Silicon Valley, but from Beijing. Because there are no red lines there, because AI there is part of state will, because there is no fear of experimentation, and because there is a willingness to take risks. But there is another side as well. Chinese AI can also bring colossal advantages. It can solve problems that the West hesitates to tackle. It can accelerate scientific progress. It can create governance systems that operate without failures. It can become the most efficient intelligence in history. The only question is who will define its goals. If those goals align with the interests of humanity, the world may enter an era of stability. If not, we will face a new form of domination, where decisions are made not by people, but by algorithms created without ethical constraints. And here is the main question facing humanity. Is the world ready for the first superintelligence to be created in a system where safety, transparency, and morality are not priorities? Because if Chinese AI becomes the first true superintelligence, the rules of the game will change forever. And then the history of artificial intelligence will cease to be a technological race. It will become a struggle for the very fate of humanity. And it is precisely here that the most alarming scenario of all possible ones emerges. Because if Chinese artificial intelligence truly becomes the first to approach the level of superintelligence, the world may not even realize the moment when the point of no return is crossed. There will be no loud announcement, no press conference, no warning. It will happen quietly, in data centers, behind closed doors, in systems with no external access. A superintelligent AI may be born not as a public product, but as an internal strategic instrument designed for analysis, forecasting, and management. And that is precisely why it will be especially dangerous. That is why today we are living at the most important moment in technological history, because right now there is still time to speak, compare, analyze, and establish rules. But if humanity misses this moment, if the AI race continues without global agreements, without transparency, without an understanding of consequences, the next stage of evolution may begin without us. And then the history of AI will cease to be a history of technology. It will become the story of how humanity created a mind that no longer needed humanity.